Okay, so I've just got max reset and I'm going to go to the unit setup straight away under the customize menu and just show you that in the system unit setup it's set to feet. And so previously I was telling you that you can leave it on inches, but if you're going to start doing things with Revit, it's a good idea to have the system unit set to feet, and Revit, when you export from there, uses the same setup. Okay, so that's the only change I've made. Otherwise, you can always use reset to put it back to the default settings and a new file. And so now I'm just going to make some simple objects just to give you an idea of the main principles with materials in Max, and it will give you a better understanding of materials in Revit as well once you know how Max materials work, because Revit materials actually come from 3ds Max. So I'm just going to make a plane in the main viewport there, which I've done just from the Create panel there, under Geometry, click Plane, and then I'm going to go to make a box and a maybe cylinder. Not worrying too much about the settings for these, and I'll do a teapot as well. You can see they're all coming up the same colour. So the first thing I'm going to do is change them so that they're different colours. The reason they're the same colour is because of a setting in Max under Customize. If you go to Custom UI and Default Switcher, it's on Design Views Mental Array, and that's going to give you the setting that makes it by layer, and that's what those objects are. If you go to Max Mental Array, then it'll use different colours for each object. Okay, so I'll set that. Okay, some things aren't changed until you restart the program, but other things are. So you can see there that now these things are different colours, and so I'll just continue making some more objects. Maybe a cone. I'll just put over here. Okay, so you can see automatically it's coming up a different colour. Now, if you ever want to change the colour of an object, you can just select them, and then if it doesn't come up in the Create panel, you should see the naming colour at the bottom, but you can always go to the Modify panel, and then at the end of the name you'll see a colour swatch. It might be two colours, don't worry, you can still click there and then choose any colour. Okay, so it's that easy to change the colours. And if you're wondering what was happening before, they were by layer, and that's using the same method as AutoCAD. Yep. Okay, so I've got some objects with different colours, but at the moment they're all still the same material. I haven't assigned a material yet. So unlike Revit, where everything has a material, in Max you do need to assign all the materials to different objects. And you do that with the material editor in the main toolbar there with the sphere. Or under rendering, you can go to materials somewhere there. There we are, material editor. And then there you'll get a choice between compact and slate. Okay, now if you click on the material editor button, you've got to click and hold the mouse to get a choice. Otherwise, it'll just give you the last one. Okay, so that's the slate editor, which is the full new editor. It's great once you get used to it, but at first it's going to maybe be a bit confusing for you. So I'd go back to modes and then compact material editor. And honestly, I've used Max for 20 years and I still use the compact one quite often. There's no shame in using that one. The slate one is the new one that has a lot more features than the old compact one. But like I said, it's much more confusing, and sometimes all you need is the compact one. So that's what I'm going to use at first. And with this one, you'll get all these different swatches. So I'm just going to move that over to the side so I can still see my objects. And then clicking on the different swatches there, you'll see it'll give you different material names. And then you'll see the different properties for all those different materials. So that's a workspace where you can see we've got what is it, 6 across. So I've got 24 materials there. And if you right click, you can change that to different numbers of sample slots. Okay, so none of those materials are being used yet, but you can drag from there onto any object and that'll assign a material. Once they're assigned, you can see you get the little triangles in the corner to tell you they're being used. So I'm going to click on the one below, and then another way of assigning is to just select an object, and then you'll see the little button with the sphere pointing at the green cube will come up, and that will let you assign a material to an object. Okay, so these 3 materials are assigned. At the moment they're all a similar colour. So I've got this material, it's called 13 default at the moment, and it's assigned to the plane. So let's give it a better name, ground material. Okay, and you can see there it's an Arkan design material. That's the kind of material it is. Right, now I want to get a new material for this ground material. So I don't need to go and make this again. I can just go to get material, or to change the type of this material I can click on the type at the end there. So Arkan design, if you click there, then you can always just go and make a new material out of this from scratch, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go down in the list there. Might just minimize materials so you can see the different sections you've got. So we've got those 4 main categories, and I'm going to go to the Autodesk Material Library, which you'll see is pretty much the same as the appearance library you have in Revit. Like I was saying, all your Revit materials come from Max originally. What you're working with in Revit is the 3ds Max setup from years ago. So the site materials, you've actually got a few more than you have in Revit, but it's basically the same selection. So there, I'll just go with a grass or something. And then I want to see this in the scene, in my viewport. So I'm going to click on the little button in the toolbar there, with the checkerboard with the light bulb on it, which is the show map in viewport button essentially. Okay, now that's changed it. Zooming in, I can finally see the image, but the reason I can't see it there is the size. Okay, so it's using this image, and we should be able to see that. The reason I can't is because this plane is using mapping, and I'm going to turn that off for the time being because I know that'll make this material work. Okay, so I'm going to get into mapping in a moment, how the size of the image gets set, but for now, with that plane, if you turn off this real world map size option, that's a good trick to make some of these materials give you the right scale. And I'm also going to, while I'm at it, just take segments out of this plane so that it's a bit easier to look at. And then I might have a look at the cylinder, and I'll go back to the material that it was using. So it's using again, an Arkan design material, which is a kind of material you have in Max and Mental Ray. It's actually what you use in Revit as well, but you don't see all the properties in Revit. So I'm going to change it back to a simpler material. Just going to, again, that swatch. I'm going to click on Arkan Design. I'm going to change it to, in the material selection at the top, in standard, you've got the standard material. Okay, so that's the original, I suppose, most common standard material you would use. I'm going to change it to Arkan Design again in a minute because that's now the standard. But I just want to show you this because you can see then the colour and the specular level. Okay, so I'll make a sphere as well so we can have 2 different objects with this material, and I'll put a box next to it. So I'm just going to make a box and a sphere just so you can see how this material looks differently on these different objects. So let's put this over here. And so I'm going to assign the same material, O1 default, to those two objects as well. Okay, so looking at the main properties there, you've got the three colour properties. If you don't know what the other two mean, apart from diffuse and ambient and specular, don't worry too much about them. Diffuse is the main colour property, and if you change it there, you'll see it's going to change the main colour of the object. Right, so the ambient colour is going to change with it. You shouldn't need to change the specular colour normally. Okay, so using diffuse, you can see again the colour swatch, and once you've got that open, you can see it's a lot like working with colours in Photoshop or really any other program that uses graphics. You've got to use RGB colours. Okay, so using light, you're mixing the full primary range, which gives you your, whatever it is, 24 million colours, or something like that. Or you can use HSV if you like, hue, saturation, brightness. But RGB is probably the easiest way. So you want to get used to working with colours with those primaries if you're not already. That is how you work with primaries, not with, I know people want to use CMYK because that's how you print, but you can't store all your colours that way. So it's much better to use RGB. And so you can make any colour using these primaries, and it's a good way of learning the primaries actually. If you're not used to using red, green and blue, you can see that when you adjust these sliders, it shows you on the slider what's going to happen if you adjust them further. So if I wanted to make a sort of a lilac colour, I can see by adding blue that it's going to take me to that on the slider. If I want to make a cyan kind of colour, then again on the slider here by adding green, you can see it's going to give me that. Okay, so it's a really good way, if you're not already doing it, of getting used to working directly with the primaries to make all your colours. And so colour obviously is one of the main properties of your material, and really the only other major properties are the shininess and the texture. And with the shininess you've got the reflective and refractive shininess. Okay, so with shininess is just another way of saying the specular element. And so here, below the colour area, you've got your specular properties. I might just double click on this swatch to make it bigger so you can see what's happening there. Turn on the background as well. And then with the specular level, I'm going to increase the glossiness to a higher value. And then the specular level as well. And you can see that's going to give me more of a highlight there. So it's giving more the effect of plastic or a glossy, shiny material with a lower glossiness value. We're going to get a less smooth or a softer highlight. Okay, and so that's how you get the different effect with different materials. To actually understand materials, you've got to work with them at this level. So the specular level there is the overall level of that highlight, and then the glossiness is how hard it is, essentially. Okay, so with a soft reflection or soft specular highlight, you're going to get those more rough materials like masonry and stone, and more matte materials as well. And then with higher glossiness levels, you'll get shiny materials like polished plastic and glass and so on. So that's all done with the specular level. And then you have opacity. Okay, so with more advanced materials, opacity and the shininess are tied together. That's just reflective or refractive elements, but at the moment they're dealt with separately. So looking at the opacity there, you can see that just affects how transparent it is, and then you would essentially fudge the shininess to make that look believable. And then along with that, the only other major element would be the bumpiness or the texture. And so in maps, You can do anything with maps, and you can see all these different options you have for the different map types. I'm just going to turn on bumps for now, and then clicking on the map swatch, I'm going to go to maps, and then bitmap, which is one of your main map types. And we've got these different textures. So these are all, some of these are actually made as bump maps, but I'm going to go into a different folder where I know I've got a lot more. Right, on the P drive, interior design, and then material images. So you might have noticed a lot of these images are made black and white. In this bump folder. They all are, but there are plenty of others. Okay, so these are made to give bump or raised textures. Okay, so I'm just going to choose one almost at random. They're all good. So maybe I want to get some brick or something though. Yep, that'll do. Okay, so I've got that file now. That image provides the bumps. Okay, so at the moment we've got a real world size, and you can see then it's this size, 1219 by, so a bit over 1.2 metres. Right, so if we know there are, well, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, so about 16 courses there, and it's early, so I'm not going to do the maths. I'm just going to say that's about 1500 high. I'd want that to be in real life. So I'm going to make that my size. It wasn't far off it anyway. Okay, and so that's almost the size of a real brick. Now, if I look at my object, you can see, well, let's see if we can see that texture. I'm going to, again, try this Show Texture in Viewport button. And I can see it there. It just looks a bit small. But if I look at that cylinder, you'll see it's got that option, Use Real World Map Size, and that's why. It's actually quite big. I've made it, you can see there, 16 metres high. So it is using the size that I've set. If I turn that off, it's going to be a lot bigger because it's not using real world units anymore. But I might turn it back on, and maybe I'll just make this a lot bigger, just so you can see it. So it's going to be a lot bigger than it would be in real life, but that's okay. Okay, so we can see that pretty clearly now. Now that's showing the bump map. I'm going to turn that off and go back up a level. So using these arrows, you can navigate through the maps. If I again click on that map there, that'll take me back to it. And then again, I click on this arrow, go to parent to take me back to the main material. Now I'll turn that button on again, and you can see it's not doing anything. Well, it's trying to show me the bump, but it probably won't do a very good job, mainly because the material is still transparent. So I'm going to make that, oops, sorry, fully opaque. It's not a transparency, it's an opacity value. And then trying to show the texture there, it might be able to do it, but because it's a bump map, it might not show it in the viewport. Oh, it's shaded anyway, so that's why. But if I render, you'll definitely see it. Okay, so you can see on all these objects that have that material, it's using the texture. I'm going to make it even bigger still. I don't want to make these objects any smaller, so I'll make it 6 meters. Rendering again, and you can see it fairly clearly now. But it's not very, maybe not very prominent. So in the, let's let that finish. Again, back in the material, you can see it's only on 30 at the moment. So that's 30%. I'll take that up to 100%. And then rendering again, you can see now it's much more obvious. So that's not done with the image. In the colour, it's using it purely to give the depth. And it's pretty believable, except at the edges. So you can see at the edges there, it's fairly obvious that this is still a flat object, but otherwise you can get away with it. There are these things called normal maps, which will do a more believable bump, but traditional bump maps are still pretty good. So you've got those main elements in any material, and I'm just going to go now and change this to Arc and Design with the button there on standard. I'm just going to click there, and then if you go to Inventor Array, you'll have this. So it's standard, we'll only have the old 3ds Max materials, but in the Mentor Array folder, you'll have Arc and Design, which is actually what you've been using without knowing it in Revit. Okay, so in Max you get all of the settings. In Revit they hide most of it from you. You don't get all of this, and you really do need to change these things quite often. So with Arc and Design, there's a bit more to it. That's why I started with standard. With Arc and Design, you do have to understand a little bit about the physics of the materials to really get what's going on there. But the nice thing with Arc and Design is they give you templates to start with. So these are not a library. The library you've got as well, which gives you that big appearance list of materials, pre-made materials. But these are templates just to start you off. So say I want to make masonry. Well, looking through the list here, in finishes, there's a masonry template. Okay, so I'll choose that. It's just frozen on me, but there we go. Okay, so if I double click on that swatch, you can see it's giving me a pretty good starting point for masonry. And now I can go and modify that. I'll choose a different one because masonry, there's a little bit to it. I don't want to go too far with that. So I'm going to go into one of the timber, one of the wood finishes, and they're also pretty good. So double clicking on that, you can see it's giving me a starting point for timber floorboards. Right, now with all of these, a lot of these templates anyway, they're going to use maps, and you'll have to go and look through the panels to see which maps are set up for you to understand how it's controlled. So I'll double click on this. So you can see as I change it, going up to the top there, the colour, the diffuse area essentially sets the colour, and that colour swatch doesn't have an effect because of the M you can see there on the swatch next to it, which tells me there's a map used to give the colour. So there's an image of this timber. Now to see that map, you can always go down to the bottom, and you'll see all the maps most of them anyway, grouped under your special purpose maps and then general maps. Yeah, well, that's what this is. Yeah, so that's the diffuse colour does the surface pattern essentially. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you will. So you'll see all that. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here the diffuse colour again is using this image. Okay, so you can see there it's this JPEG, wood plank beach. You can click there to open it up, back to parent to go back to the main material, or in the top area you can just click on that button there to go into the map. So that's where I make the changes to make this colour and that appearance of floorboards look different. Changing the colour, you can click on the colour swatch and it's the same as with the standard material, but it's not going to do anything. It's going to change the materials in the viewport, but not the material because the material uses the image. Exactly, yeah. Okay, so if I click on that swatch, now I can see the image. Click View Image if you want to see a preview of it. And it's, you can probably see a bit different to the material. That's because of the changes made to it. But basically we've got, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 boards across, we'll say. And it's about twice as high as it is wide. And with any image you use to make your materials, you want to have an idea about these things. Alright, so here in properties you can see it's not even giving me a size in millimetres. But if you tick again, use real world map scale. That's what you want to always look for when you're working with images to make your materials, whether it's real world or not. And so with real world size, you type in a size in millimetres or the units that you work with. Yes. Oh, no, for each image, for each material. Exactly. So we know there are 6 across. We're going to make them a bit bigger than they would be in real life. So we'll say 1200 across. So they're about 200 mil each across. So that'll be my width. And like I said, we know just visually looking at it, it's about twice as high as it is wide, so I'm going to make the height 24. Yep. Okay, so now I can see it's looking better on the preview here. Now I'm going to check this one. I know this material has a few elements to it, so I'm going to go back up a level, back to the parent. I'm going to go down to the bottom and look at the bump map as well. So the bumps there, if I click on that swatch, you'll see it's actually got a few different elements, but just have a look at what's in there and you find it's not too difficult to work with. This one here, which has that same image, when I go to it, you can see it's already picked up the setting. So they're linked together. You still should be aware of it and look for those things, but I know that's okay. And then looking at the one above, it's using a noise setting, which I should really change, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave that for now. As long as it doesn't use the image, I'm not too worried that it's that the size isn't changed. So that's all basically the way I want it. I'm going to go back into the diffuse color map though, and just have a look at the reason that it's darker. So at the moment you can see it's, with the original image, a fairly light timber, but the material's darker, you can see in the preview, and that's done down here in output. You can see it's got the RGB level taken down to less than 1. So I'm going to raise that a little bit, and you can see that's going to affect the brightness of the image. So you can adjust the images and work with them quite a lot in Max in your material. But if that's not working for you, just remember you can always go into Photoshop and do those things. And that's often a better way of doing it. If you make it brighter or darker there, then you know, it's done in the image, and then you just choose it in Max with those things already set up. So that's basically got the material now set the way I want it. No, well the image won't, but on the preview it will. Yeah, so you'll always see it here. And but I'll close that now. I don't need the preview anymore. I'm going to use this checkerboard light bulb button again to turn it on in the viewport, and then I can see it on my objects. So now, just with them selected, you can see if you've got that real world map size turned on, then the scale should be right, because that's how I've done the map in the material. So all these things, it's the right size. And that's a really good thing. So if I make that box bigger or smaller, the material doesn't change size. Whereas the grass that I made earlier, if you remember, I didn't use real world map size on that one. So it's got the image set to that object, and it doesn't matter if that object gets bigger, that's right, the image will just take up that object. So if I make it wider, you can see the material this time is going to stretch with it. And there's no right or wrong way. It's going to be dependent on what you're making. So if you're making, say, a billboard where you want a sign to fit on that billboard exactly, then you would set it like this. But if you're making floorboards where the floorboard's always a fixed size, then you would do it with real world size. Okay, so that should give you a pretty good overview of materials. I might just quickly go to one of the files I had with the vanities, and let me save that. Rather than showing you that awful bathroom that I had, I might just, now here I'm going to rescale the file's objects to my system unit scale, because I want to be working in feet, not inches. And I've got my vanities there. So just to do some quick things with the materials on these, and maybe show you things that could be handy for your bathrooms, I'll do a quick little bench under them. Make it maybe a bit narrower. I want to make it into something that's a little bit believable. And also just show you how quick it can be to model things in Max. So I've got a whole lot of things that you can make with boxes, hopefully, and it's amazing how versatile this tool can be. And actually, because I've shown you the box tool so many times, I'll show you another one that's similar, but a little bit better. In extended primitives, you have chamfer box. So I'll just make some boxes with auto grid, you can see, ticked in the panel there, which means it'll snap to the surface on the bottom of my bench there. Okay, so that'll give me legs that can be a little bit rounded. And since I'm going to do it for the, I'll round the other one separately. Okay, so I might round this one as well, but I'll show you if you have it with a box, how to round that as well afterwards. So here, I'm just going to make the size a bit smaller. I want to make these into just sort of metal legs. Okay, so because I made them from the underside, when I take the height up, they're going to go down. Just because I did auto grid. Okay, so I'm just going to make some very simple metal legs here, and so I'm just going to hold down Shift to copy, if you've gotten that. Leaving it on instance. Now these two are linked copies, so I can still adjust the height of them. Using Control, I'll select the other one and then just copy this around. Oh, sorry, just using Shift, bring that back. Again, I'll leave this on instance, so these 4 objects are all going to be identical. Make that in from the sides. And I might just do some crossbars then. So again, just with one of those selected, again, Shift to copy, and I'll just bring this one across. This time I'm going to make it a copy, not an instance. So I can change it. And we're going to change the height to make that much smaller. Use the Z-axis to drag it down, and then dragging the length out, I can make it wider. So just get a crossbar, in other words. Okay, something like that. I'm trying to make it look a little bit rough, so I don't mind if they intersect each other. Oops. A little bit more. And so just a few more copies of these. So again, back to being an instance, so these remain identical. Might just fine tune these a little. And yeah, and just a couple more crossbars going the other way should do it. So back to copy, and again just adjusting properties. Okay, so you can build a lot of the building elements in your projects just using boxes. You'd be surprised how many things in buildings basically come down to just being simple forms like this. And if you want rounded edges, use chamfer boxes. So, now these I'm going to have to increase my fillet segments for all of them. That's a bit silly of me, so I didn't do that in advance, but it's no problem now to just go in and put some fillet segments to get those to all be rounded, because they're instances it won't take very long. Okay, so looking there, you can see that looks reasonable. When they render, that should be okay. And then It should have a floor. Definitely helps with your materials to have the lighting working. So just having something like a plane for the ground. And then you could have either a plane or a box for the back wall. Oops. And I suppose it wouldn't hurt to have a mirror or something on that wall. Again, just using a box, you can easily copy those and just adjust the properties. So hopefully you can see how you can quickly get things like this just to test in Max. Okay, so just change the colour of that. Right. Okay, so just to assign the materials now in a similar way, starting with the wall, I'll just go into the material editor and then I'll go down to one of the swatches below. These are all, you can see different materials, and they're actually a good starting selection that can be used for different things later maybe. So I don't want to change those. I'm just going to change one of the plain grey ones. And then going to, you can see here it's already Arc and Design. So I'm going to go down to the templates straight away and just choose Matte Finish. Right, so that's not going to change anything much. It's just going to make it a matte material. It hasn't changed the colour. So here, if I click on the colour swatch, you can see there's no M there, so it's not using an image. The colour's going to set the colour, and I'll just make this different so you can see it change. Okay, so you can see that has changed the colour. Maybe I should make it something that's different to what it already is. The wall's not changing because I haven't assigned the material yet. So using this button here, I can assign it. And now as I change it, you can see obviously the wall colour's going to change. Same with the floor. So this time I'll select a new swatch. I don't want to use this one because that's already assigned. So going to the next one across. This time I'll start with the, well, let's do timber. Also no tiles. So since it's a bathroom. So you have a ceramic, glazed ceramic tiles preset. This one uses maps. So you can see there M for diffuse and reflection as well. Not for refraction, that's good. So I'm going to assign again. Can't see much here. And so I'm going to try rendering. And we can see, well, it's assigned. We know that it's working. But I might want to make them bigger. So if you remember, click on the M. There's a shortcut to go into the map. You'll see these are set in, it's a tiles map, and it uses the advanced controls there to set the count. So I'm going to change that to just to 2. Or 1 even. No, I'll do 2, which will make it twice the size. So go to parent, and then with the reflection map as well, I'm going to look at that. And then again in advanced controls, you can see it's already got the change. Okay, so this is another linked map. And I'm going to go down and look at some of these other things. So the bumps there, I'm just going to go through all of these and see that they're using the same map. They should be, but it doesn't hurt to check. So anything where I see a map, you can see here, here and here, they're using them as well. This is the one I've already looked at, but just so you can see another way of getting into it. Okay, so if I render now, I'll see the change. And if I want to make a change to the tile colour, I'd have to go into the diffuse colour map or use the shortcut. And there you can see the colour for the tile and the colour for the grout. So the grout's using another map. I'm not going to change it, but I'll change the colour, and I can make that obviously a different colour tile. Okay, so just make it maybe something that's going to stand out. Pretty awful colour. Just so you can see it. And oh yeah, so I'll go back to the parent, and I'll try showing the map in the viewport now, and then we can actually see that on the floor before rendering, but obviously when I render, I'll see that as well. Right, so I might go back to a plainer colour, but hopefully you can see there how usually changing the colour is not the most difficult thing, but sometimes you've got to dig a little bit to work out where to do it. And then looking at the vanities, I'll go again to the next swatch for those, and then again you'll see there's a preset for just glazed ceramic. Now it's a very similar material. I'll assign it. You can see it doesn't have a map, so you can just set a colour for this directly. So I can make it white ceramic just by changing that value to being close to white, or even full white. Actually, this is one of the few things where you could go basically white if you want to. So now, again, just rendering. Okay, so that's okay. And when I have maybe textured materials around that, maybe this can be timber. So across to the next slot. So it's fairly quick once you get used to using the templates. If I get just a wood material to start with and assign it, check the mapping. Real world map size is on here. Going into the image, you can see it's not, so I'll turn it on there as well. Looking at the image, you can see it's the same one as before. So I might just click on the bitmap button, and then let's see what we've got here. Okay, believe it or not, they don't set a lot of maps initially in 3ds Max. So it's got these different things for trees and things, but I'm going to go onto P drive and then to design, material images, where I know we've got a lot more. I might just go to, do we have a wood folder? Yes, the wood folder there. And then, let's see. Should give us previews, maybe. No, okay, so you can get them down below when you select at least. I'll just do this one for now. Ashen, even though not the best. Oh no, walnut will do that. Okay, so again, I can try showing the map in the viewport to see how that's looking. Right, so I can see that on the object fairly well. With real world map scale, I can set a size. So 304 mil. Let's look at the image. For that image, about 300 mil. It's probably not too bad. You could try making it bigger. Maybe 500 mil might be bigger, might be better. Okay, so you can see the change now over here. And okay, so they're done. Might just assign the legs. So I'm going to use a trick here. If I select one of those and then right click and then select similar, it'll get all the other chamfer boxes. So it's similar to select all instances in Revit. Okay, so I'm going to go and get a metal material. So again, using Arc Design, you have metal presets. So chrome here would be okay. So material selection, and so again, rendering, you can see the reflections. Okay, now that timber is very dark. I want to check the image there. So back into the timber, you can see it's on the preview, so we can see there why that's happening. It's because going to the output, the same as before, the RGB level is very low, so I'll take that back up to 1. And, it's got a colour map, we don't want that. What else is there? Okay, so we can see it there now. That's the small image you can see there. It's quite small. So we can always try increasing the brightness, so you can take the output amount or the RGB level up higher, and you'll see that image should be clearer. It does seem fairly dark though, still, but everything else there looks okay. I mean, the RGB offset will definitely bring it right up, but I don't want to do that, so yeah, I think it just is a dark image. And it's a TGA file, so that's maybe part of it as well. So it looks very small on that sphere, but remember in relation to this object, it's not as small. And there we go. So now I can see that timber more clearly. It's maybe a bit too reflective. So looking at the main material properties there, so this is still the map, so I've got to go back to the parent. And you can see then it's got reflection and glossiness similar to your diffuse, similar to standard materials, but it's physically accurate. So the reflectivity there is tied in with the highlights. They're not separate controls. So if you make it shinier, it's also going to be more reflective. Okay, so I can make it less reflective, which is really what I want here. And then the glossiness, if you take it higher, it's going to be harder. Take it down, it's going to be softer. And less glossy materials, in other words, as you lower this value, often you're going to be increasing render times. Because with the hard reflections, all it's got to do is calculate the reflection. But as you blur the reflection, you're increasing the calculation that it needs to do. But that can give you those realistic effects. Okay, so I'll take the glossiness back down, and then transparency or refraction works in a similar way. But we'll leave that for now. So looking at the other objects there, maybe I'll just quickly assign some materials to those, put a light in here, and that'll be enough. So I've got this ceramic material that I made earlier. I'll give it a name. I'll call it ceramic. It's the one I assigned to the other vanity, so I'll assign it to this one as well. And this one. So they'll all be controlled by the same material. The mirror, I know there's an easy way of getting that. If you go again to your presets, so your templates, you have a glass template, so you can always just use that and then set it to full reflection, glass thin geometry. Or even quicker sometimes, or rather than changing these properties, you can click on the material type and then just go to the material library, and there's a mirror folder there where you have these pre-made mirrors which work perfectly. So I'm just going to go for the bathroom mirror there, and again assign it. Okay, so to render a scene like this, you'd need to have, now that it's got these reflective materials, you do need to have an environment. So I'll need to, maybe I'll just make this plane bigger. Okay, so it's going to be a fairly big bathroom, but that's all right. I'm going to copy the wall across. Yep, exactly. Yep, that's right. Yep. No, unfortunately no. So once they're separate, that's it. They're separate forever. yeah, so you've got to plan it out. I mean, there are other ways of grouping things though, so and other ways of linking things, so you can still get things back. So anyhow, there I've got just a very simple enclosed space, and okay, so then it should have a ceiling as well, and so again, just in here, I'll copy this up. So that's my floor, which I'm going to leave as an instance, but I'm also going to rotate it 180 degrees so that it's upside down, and I'm going to assign a new material to it as well. Now sorry, I left it as an instance, but I want to assign a new material to it, and so now I've got to make it unique. And you can always do that. It can go the other way. So when you see it in bold, if you right click, you can go make unique, and then it's no longer an instance. Okay, so now I'll just assign this material, which is just one of the plain grey materials. Get some very quick lights in, and you'll see how it renders. So target lights are your main kind of light in Revit, in 3ds Max, sorry, and that's actually what Revit uses as well. Okay, so to see all of that now come together with the materials and the lights combined, if you go where it's got the shaded swatch in, or the shaded graphics in your viewport, when you right click there and change to realistic, it will show with the lighting. It's not doing a lot there. If I go to, again, that swatch, right click and go to lighting and shadows, illuminate with scene lights, it should do a better job. And then under rendering, exposure control, probably here I can just use a preset as long as it's on MR photographic. Go to indoor nighttime, which is going to give you an EV of 2, which you can then increase. So I'm going to make that, say 5 or 6. And now my light's fairly bright, so I'm going to go to the modify panel and just use a template similar to the materials to set a starting brightness. So there, let's go for a recessed 35-watt lamp. Okay, so I've got my light, and then I'll just do a few of those. So maybe 2 actually. Yeah, just need 2 here. Or should I do 3? Yeah, I'll do 3. Okay, so I just did Control C to turn that perspective viewport into a camera. It's just a little shortcut. And then finally we can render. So there's obviously a lot you can do with materials, and you know, plenty of other properties going beyond that. But still, once you get a basic handle on those main properties, colour, shininess, and transparency, and then texture, I suppose, you can do probably most things. And again, it's often a matter of just knowing maybe something about how to get started as well. So it does take a bit of getting used to, but also once you learn the material interface in Max, in programs like Maya and Lightwave and Softimage, they use a similar editor to this one, the Slate Material Editor, where it's node-based. But again, once you get used to the compact material editor, it won't take you long to switch over to that new one. And the only thing I didn't show you was transparent materials, but well, probably would give you a reasonable idea anyway, without showing you. But I'll just quickly make something. Teapot, I'll just stick that in the middle there. Nice big teapot. Make it a bit more detailed with some extra segments. And I'm just going to do a really quick transparent material in the material editor. I'll get a new swatch, and then in the templates you'll see you've got thin geometry, also glass, thin geometry, solid geometry, and physical. They're basically in increments of complexity. So the thin geometry is the most simple, solid is the next most, and then physical is the most complicated. Only really necessary if you're going to do really complicated rendering effects like caustics and other things. Otherwise, solid for most things is good, or even thin geometry. So that's it. Assign, render. And it'll look like real glass. It's just fantastic the way Mentor does glass. Usually. Okay, so that easy, and then the properties again are a lot like the other things. So just looking at this material, you can see it has colour, just like other things, but the colour's not going to have much of an effect while it's so transparent. So as you reduce the transparency, you'll see more of the colour effect. And you can change that, so you can put a tint on or do something like that, but it does need to be oh, sorry, what did I change before? I thought I changed the transparency. Anyhow, so it's the refractive value there with transparency on 1. If I take that down, then you'll start to see the colour. Let's go down. Okay, so now, there we are. See that colour, and as I change that to a colour, you should start to see, there we go, you can start to see the colour in the glass. Okay, so that's how you get different transparency effects. Not a huge change there. So it needs to be maybe quite a bit more solid. Oh, no, that's just the surface colour. When you get into, sorry, this is a solid glass, so I'd have to try with the refractive colour. Also the translucency is a good option here. So that colour, I'm just going to copy by right clicking and then paste that into the translucency as well. I'll go for it, that's fine. So anyway, you can start to see the colour there at the top, but you'd have to play around to get it to go through, but you definitely can affect the colour of glass and other things. And yeah, there's a lot of things to look at with materials in Max, but just wanted to give you an idea about those things. Next week I'll go through lighting, and if you have a look on the P drive though, there are other videos that maybe aren't as long as the one I've just done on materials, which we go through the main steps as well.